14 أذار حتى نحقق الحرية التي ننشدها جميعا.
Good afternoon. It is Saturday, March 23rd. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati officially hands in his resignation to President Sulaiman, prompting mixed reactions from local and international leaders. Syrian rebels seize a key airbase in the southern Syrian province of Daraa, while the U.S. pledges an additional $200 million to Syrian refugees in Jordan. And U.S. President Barack Obama wraps up his 4-day trip to the Middle East with a walking tour of the ancient city of Petra in Jordan. President Michel Sulaiman officially accepted the resignation of the government after the resignation of Prime Minister Najib Mikati. At brief talks at the Babda Palace, Mikati called his decision to submit a written resignation a personal one and claimed he did not consult any political party in order to avoid any pressure from either side. Mikati also expressed hope that his resignation will pave the way for a solution to the Lebanese political deadlock. He announced his resignation on Friday night in light of the cabinet's failure to form an authority to oversee the parliamentary elections and extend the term of Internal Security Forces Chief Ashraf Rifi. Consultations to form a new government are expected to kick off next week. Local reactions to Mikati's resignation have been mixed, with some sides calling for a salvation government and others condemning the step at such a critical time in the region and ahead of the elections. Former Premier Fouad Senoura announced that the government's resignation opens the door to returning to dialogue. He told the former government should have resigned a long time ago and that Mikati's step has opened a new window for correcting its faulty performance. Meanwhile, former President Amin Jumail urged all political leaders to join forces with Sulaiman, who will now play an important role in preventing a power vacuum. Jumail also called on Mikati to collaborate to find a way out of a current situation. Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja called Mikati's resignation a brave step, while Free Patriotic Movement MP Michel Aoun slammed the decision, calling it the reason behind the resignation silly and dumb. The international community has expressed concern over Mikati's resignation. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has urged all sides in Lebanon to unite and cooperate with state institutions in order to maintain stability and respect the Babda Declaration. In addition, Ban Ki-moon hoped that the Lebanese people will support the army and security forces in bolstering national unity, sovereignty, and security. Meanwhile, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton also voiced concern over the deteriorating situation she called in the country. Regretting the political stalemate over domestic issues that led to the premier resignation, Ashton also expressed worries over security incidents undermining stability and said the presence of hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees placed a heavy burden on Lebanon. After 2 weeks of fierce battles, Syrian rebels have seized a key airbase in the southern Syrian province of Daraa. At least 7 rebels were killed in their final assault on the base, and dozens of prisoners were freed from its headquarters. Elsewhere in the southern province of Quneitra, at least 35 rebels were killed in battles that raged near the sensitive ceasefire line with Israel. Meanwhile, opposition campaigners from the Alawite sect are meeting in Cairo to support a democratic alternative to Assad's rule. The 2-day meeting, the first by Alawites supportive of the revolt, will draft a declaration inviting the mainstream opposition to cooperate on preventing sectarian bloodshed if Assad falls. These developments come as Obama ends his Middle Eastern trip by pledging an additional $200 million to help Syrian refugees in Jordan.
The United States will certainly do our part. We are already the single largest donor of humanitarian assistance to the Syrian people. Some of this has helped people here in Jordan, and today I'm announcing that my administration will work with Congress to provide Jordan with an additional $200 million in budget support this year as it cares for Syrian refugees and Jordanian communities affected. We are going to continue to closely consult with everybody in the region and do everything we can to bring an end to the bloodshed and to allow the Syrian people to get out from under the yoke of a leader who has lost all legitimacy because he is willing to slaughter his own people. And I'm confident that Assad will go. It's not a question of if, it's when. And so part of what we have to spend a lot of time thinking about is what's the aftermath of that.
Well, Obama ended his visit to the Middle East with a trip to the famous ruins of the ancient city of Petra in Jordan. Analysts say his 4-day Middle Eastern visit has yielded mixed results. The highlight of his trip came when he successfully led Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to apologize to Turkey for any errors that could have led to the loss of life during the 2006 commando raid on an aid flotilla that tried to breach the Gaza blockade. Netanyahu also agreed to compensate the families of the 9 Turkish activists who were also killed in 2010. Despite such a success, many are disappointed at the little progress Obama made on the Palestinian issue. Now for news around the world in brief. Egyptian police forces guard the headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood after more than 160 people were hurt in running street battles between Islamists and opposition protesters last night. In Cairo, several thousand activist supporters marched to the Muqattam area to face Brotherhood supporters and police guarding the movement's headquarters. Meanwhile, in Mahalla, petrol bombs were thrown at the Islamist office, setting the building on fire. Riot police fired tear gas as the two sides pelted each other with stones. An Australian man kidnapped 15 months ago by an al-Qaeda-linked group in the Philippines has been released. In December 2011, Warren Rodwell was kidnapped by Abu Sayyaf militants, considered the smallest and most radical of the extremist movements in the southern Philippines. Australian Foreign Minister Bob Carr welcomed the news, congratulating the Filipino government for its tireless efforts. Abu Sayyaf militants remain a security threat in the impoverished region of Mindanao, where minority Muslims have been fighting for self-rule for decades. And Pope Francis flew into a papal residence near Rome for an unprecedented encounter with former Pope Benedict XVI. This encounter will be the first time a pontiff will meet his predecessor. Celestine V, the last pope that resigned in 1294, was locked up and perhaps killed off by his successor. There is no record of the two ever meeting post-resignation. Today's talks will be private, and the Vatican has said very little is likely to emerge about their content, with any number of urgent issues for a troubled Roman Catholic Church possibly on the agenda. Coming up next, actress and director Nadine Lebeke talks about her inspiration and what it means to be a Lebanese woman growing up during the war. Stay with us for the exclusive. Welcome back. Nadine Lebeke is the Lebanese dream. Growing up during the war, the actress and director says she always knew she wanted to be involved in filmmaking, as it was the best outlet for the frustration she felt as a child. She opens up to us in this exclusive.
What inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Surprisingly, I think the war had something to do with it. Because, you know, when we were kids, most of the time we were stuck at home because of the war. So we couldn't go out, we couldn't play outside, we couldn't sometimes even go to school. We used to spend really sometimes more than 2-3 months without schools. So I think during these times, boredom was a big part of my life. You know, as a child, you can't do anything. So TV started to become a very important part of my life, the TV set. It made me escape, my reality, the boredom of my own life, and I was lucky because I used to live right next to a video rental store. And we used to rent, these video cassettes, VHS cassettes for films. And so I used to spend a lot of time there, choosing films, watching films over and over again, because, we didn't have this, a big numbers of films to see or collection of films to see. So there were a lot of films that I used to watch a lot.
But a girl growing up in war-torn Lebanon and becoming a filmmaker whose films are broadcast in Cannes, there's a gap there.
Yeah, there is.
How did you go from one to the other?
There is a big gap. Somehow it seemed impossible. It seemed like it was going to be the impossible dream. But I don't know what it is that made me believe in that dream. Not only believe in it, but I was sure that I was going to be able to do it somehow. I don't know what gave me this confidence, even though it sounded really impossible, because, like you said, war-torn country, Arabic country.
A woman.
This was not something that scared me. Never. That's very strange. But I feel a little bit irritated when we have conferences about the power of women, or when we celebrate Women's Day, because I don't think that we should be looked at in that way. I have never personally felt the difficulty of my job because I'm a woman. For me, it's a difficult job anyway. It's a difficult life anyway.
But you never thought about the perception as opposed to what you...
No, I never thought about this. And I never felt the difficulty or the look of other people, looking at me in a skeptical way because I'm a woman. Never. Never. That's very strange.
I know. I think that probably could have affected the success, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I just never felt it. So it was an impossible dream, but not because of that. Because of the fact that there's no film industry. We live in a very small country. When we grow up in school, the first thing when they talk about Lebanon and when they show you Lebanon on the map, this is something I will never forget. They used to tell us, you see that little dot on the map? This is Lebanon. You barely see it. So you grow up thinking that you come from a small country, you will never make it. It's impossible to make it. It's not even a dot on the map. So how can such a small country be able to do anything? So and we do have this, even though we have this humongous pride as Lebanese, somehow we do have this doubt. And I see this doubt in all the people that even doubt my ability in making a good film.
This brings us to talk about your first big movie, Caramel. And I read that you said that caramel was sweet and salty, sugary and sour. It talks about the delicious sugar that can burn and hurt you.
It was a time where I was asking myself a lot of, questions about us women. And I was not happy with what I was seeing. I wanted to identify to another Lebanese woman, and I wanted to look like, not to look like, when you're young, you want to identify to somebody, you want to find an idol. And unfortunately, I could not, because I felt that the Lebanese woman was very self-conscious, was not at ease with her body, was very conscious of what other people, how other people see her. I felt the weight of, how other people look at you. So there was a lot of, the fact that why do we go to extreme so much? Why do we have to, do all these things to ourselves, to our bodies, to our faces? I'm talking about, the
plastic surgery,
the excessive plastic surgery. Why is it that we have become like this? We are lost in general. We don't know where to belong. Who are we? Are we Western? Are we Eastern? Or are we, we have all this modern society that is, that we're exposed to. We want to look like these people that are very trendy, that dress nicely, that seem to be very free. At the same time, we are very, we don't know if we have to be more in touch with our, traditional side, or more in touch of, where we come from, the language. Who are we? Why do we deny our language this much? Why are all, especially this new generation, nobody speaks Arabic anymore. Nobody reads Arabic anymore. We're either talking French or English. To go back to your question, Kerbanet was this quest of trying to understand why we are like this. And so I we started talking about, because of course we cannot generalize and we cannot talk about one Lebanese woman. So I took, 5 examples of different women from different ages, different age groups, different backgrounds, different religions, trying to live together in that same place. And I tried to tackle some of the problems these women are facing.
Part 2 of our exclusive interview continues tomorrow. And on that note, let me remind you of today's top stories. Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati officially hands in his resignation to President Sulaiman, prompting mixed reactions from local and international leaders. Syrian rebels seize a key airbase in the southern Syrian province of Daraa, while the U.S. pledges an additional $200 million to Syrian refugees in Jordan. And U.S. President Barack Obama wraps up his 4-day trip to the Middle East with a walking tour of the ancient city of Petra in Jordan. Those are your Saturday headlines. Don't forget, tonight for Earth Day, many cities around the world will be turning off their lights for 1 hour. In Beirut, it starts at 8:30. Have a great weekend.
14 أذار حتى نحقق الحرية التي ننشدها جميعا.